Hey guys, what's up? It's me again. Whoa, I know, I do way too many of these. You're probably sick of my face. Me too. Um, as you can tell, this is the final reflection, which is exciting because summer, but also kind of sad because I did really enjoy this class. So before I jump into this, I just wanted to say that it has been a pleasure to get to know you guys through this online interface, and maybe I'll see you around next year if you're still here. If not, I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. Let's get into it. So first off, my shadow is really crazy and it reminds me of the yellow wallpaper. Whoa, connections. Anyways, point number one. So out of the three things that I learned in this class, the first was to use a multitude of online resources. So more than any other class, like, we've kind of had to try to approach our projects in a more creative manner, and instead of just doing like a Word document or a PowerPoint like we normally would in any regular class, like, we were forced to think outside the box, which is great because if you think about it, in any life circumstance, being able to present information in a unique way is really the key to getting people to pay attention and showcasing how important that one thing is. So like I said, we have to figure out how to present information in a way that is unique, in a way that people have not necessarily seen before, which is amazing. So I wrote down a couple examples of programs that I've used that have differed from anything I've used in any other class, or things that I've learned to use over the course of this class. So first off, Vyond, which is the video animation making program that we used, that my group actually used when we did that one play, which for some reason I can't even remember what it's called, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The one play. And that's actually a really great resource that I'm definitely going to use in the future. Especially, it's perfect for people who don't want to be on camera, but as you guys probably know, I am fine with being on camera. I mean, I played two men on camera in the last project. Other programs that we've used, I attempted to use Movely, which is another video making service where you can kind of do cool transitions and stuff and put it into, it just kind of makes things more interesting. It's like an interesting interactive PowerPoint type thing. I didn't get to use it this time around, but I definitely tried. But that's definitely something that I've gotten more advanced with using over the course of this class. Other things, I've had to use Photoshop, not like for this, but like for when I did the poem and I wanted to make it really fancy and change the text and change the background, and so I was able to use Photoshop and kind of learn a little bit about that when I did that project, when we wrote the poems. I actually did a lot of research trying to find more ways to do interactive PowerPoints. I don't know if that's really a thing. I know people use Prezis a lot, but honestly, I just kind of got sick of Prezis, and I was wondering if there was another service where you could like click buttons and stuff and make things happen in a PowerPoint program, but unfortunately, those are all money. But I did look. So there's actually a lot of really interesting resources if anyone ever wants to look into that as well. I used a lot of Windows Movie Maker, especially on the last video, the sketch video, where I had every little piece, and that was really complicated overall, especially just with the technology that was involved, because I recorded it on a device that wasn't compatible with Movie Maker, so I had to transfer the files over. I had to convert the files, which I learned how to do. I had to convert them online. Then I had to figure out the audio, and then I had to figure out how to convert like GIFs and stuff because I wanted to have those in. And if you think it's GIFs, it's not. It's GIFs. I'm sorry. But all that kind of stuff that would be really beneficial if I were to use this program again, like I learned how to do. I was forced to learn how to do from this. I'm already at 2 minutes. I talk so much. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, yeah. I'm really trying not to make this video like 10 minutes like most of my video diaries are, so I'm sorry. I'll move on to the next point. So next thing that I learned in this class, I've learned how to look beyond the text, and this is, my 2 points are really similar in that sense, but in this sense, I'm talking about a lot of like time period stuff and author stuff. My main example for this is the yellow wallpaper when we did the comparison between the one and the other, and that was probably the hardest project, in my opinion, that we did in this whole class, because I'm not typically, or I'm not used to thinking about that kind of stuff. Like I am, but at the same time, I tend to ignore it, and I think a lot of people do the same thing. They just kind of read the text and try to figure out the meaning that way instead of analyzing other things. So like I wrote down things that I analyzed when we did the yellow wallpaper. So I looked a lot at, for one, the historical background. So for example, in that time period, was it okay for women to be writers and publish works like that? Especially because she was talking about things that were not societally acceptable to talk about. So that kind of reminded me of like the Bronte sisters, how they had to write under like different aliases and stuff, which was kind of interesting. But she obviously, I think she did write under her real name, if I'm not mistaken. So that was different. I also looked into the journal that it was published in to see what other kind of works that were published in the journal, if there was a stylistic component to that, and that could tell you a lot about the different works, and it can tell you a lot about the work itself that you're trying to analyze. Like I said, I looked at the societal conditions, whether it was okay for women to write, and just kind of like how society viewed these issues that they were talking about, like mental health was a big component of that. And then lastly, which is probably the most important thing, the author's background. So what was the purpose of them writing it? If you know kind of the context of their life, and then you can kind of compare it to the authors they're talking about, if they were projecting their experiences onto the characters, which is what a lot of authors do, because that's a really good way to write. So all of this combined, these are things that we tend to ignore, but I learned to kind of get back into trying to look for these factors and compare it to the story itself and use that to my benefit when I'm analyzing it. Wow, I'm already at 7 minutes. Okay, last point. I'm sorry. So the last thing I learned was how to make inferences about characters and look beyond the literal meaning of the text, which sounds a lot like what I just said, but I mean it in a different sense. So I actually took this same exact class in high school. It was a literature class. So we actually read a lot of the same text, and I've read these stories a ton of times. But from this class, from the projects we've done, it forced me to look at the stories a new way. And every time I read these stories, I pick up new facts and details about them. And I think the projects definitely helped that. To keep this short, my example is going to be Araby. So I read Araby in high school, didn't get it. I read it last semester, didn't get it. And then I read it again this semester, and I finally think I kind of got it, hopefully. I mean, I did a whole project on it, so I would hope that I would have understood it at least partially by then. But being able to do the project and you kind of have to analyze deeper into what you normally would have, that really helps you to understand the story, for one, and especially when I was analyzing the characters and the symbols and such, like that, you really, really have to know what you're talking about when you're doing that type of analysis. So I definitely did a lot of research on this story just to make sure I knew what I was talking about, and overall I finally was able to understand it after several times of reading it. So I keep learning more and more about these stories. Another quick example, Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? I have read that story millions of times before, and it's one of my favorite short stories of all time. I absolutely love it. The first time I read it, I thought that he was a manifestation of the devil, but the second time I read it, when I read it this time around, I kind of thought that he was a vampire, just because the whole "you have to invite me in" thing, I think that's like a characteristic of a vampire or something. But either way you look at it, every time you look at it, it's a different interpretation. There is no right answer, which is, I think, what I like the most about this story. Okay. Also, I forgot to add, if you really like that story as much as I did, you should check out Turn of the Screw. It is a short story, but it's a little bit longer. It's a decent bit longer. Really, really interesting psychological thriller, and I highly recommend it. And that is all I have for you guys. I tried to keep it under 10 minutes. Who knows if I succeeded? I won't know until I go back and edit this video, but I have loved being a part of this class and getting to know you guys, like I said before. So best of luck to you all. All right, for the last time, see ya.